This is Red Ice Radio, a beacon of sanity from Northern Europe. RedIceCreations.com.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another Red Ice Radio program. We appreciate you taking the time to listen and hopefully learn some new things about the topics that we discuss. I'm Henrik Palmgren, and we are coming to you from the north up in Scandinavia, and it's always an honor to have you with us wherever you're from. RedIceCreations.com and RedIceMembers.com. That's our websites, and we are continuing our investigation into the conspiracy and the intriguing, strange, sometimes bizarre, and the extraordinary with an open and critical mind. We are asking you to believe nothing but to consider and contemplate. And at the end of the day, what you make of the material that we present, that we leave up to you. We try to offer you a diverse picture with discussions from different sides of the various arguments and topics. And I personally believe it's only with an understanding of the full spectrum that we can begin to make good and coherent choices and form a level of understanding that actually is based on reality and not propaganda or a sensationalized story. We want to know, that's all, and in this process we're forced to sift through a lot of different material to get to the core of the matter. So, this is a journey, not an end result. This is the beginning, not the end. Today we are talking to Freeman and Jamie Hanshaw about Hollywood mind control. Freeman is a TV producer, filmmaker, radio talk show host and lecturer that have been with us many times before on the program. He is considered an expert in the fields of the occult, trauma-based mind control, government conspiracy and ancient civilizations. His partner, Jamie Hanshaw, also studies the occult activities of secret societies, the Freemasons, magic, sorcery, Kabbalistic rituals, and Hollywood trauma-based mind control. She, with co-writer Freeman, is compiling all of this information into a fully illustrated, well-referenced compendium of the occult mind pattern programming of Hollywood and the mainstream media in their book Weird Stuff, Operation Culture Creation. We also have Lana from Radio 314 with us during this program, and we have a lot of things to discuss today, so stay with us for much more. 2 hours coming your way. All right, welcome everybody to this Red Ice Radio program. Next to me, I have Lana with me here in the studio. Hi, Lana. Good to have you with us. And on the other side of the pond, somewhere in the United States of America, Freeman and Jamie. Hi, Freeman. First to you.
Hi, how are you, Jay?
Pretty good. Good to talk to you, and to Jamie as well. Hi, Jamie.
Hello, Henrik and Lana.
So where are you guys?
We're in Trout Lake, Washington at the East City Ranch.
Just hanging out with James Gilliland and checking out the crazy orbs and flying saucers and such.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit about what you've seen, if anything. That's we got to ask that.
Well, I got to say, they have treated us like royalty. We have really been enjoying this stay big time. And I managed to go out last Saturday and get under the night vision goggles along with the infrared, and looking out at Mount Adams. We had the infrared beaming at the mountain, and I had the night vision goggles. And all of a sudden, and now what I had anticipated was just like little orbs showing up inside of the infrared light, and it looked like that. So this to me could have been water vapor or anything showing up in the light beam itself. But of course it's infrared, so you can't see it with the naked eye, but with the night vision you can. So I'm seeing these little orbs, what look like dust particles in the beam itself, and thought, well, whatever that is. And all of a sudden, as I'm thinking that, this massive green orb just comes down from outside of the beam. It wasn't in the light beam at all, and swooped right past, leaving this long trail going right across the whole grounds in front of the mountain, and then just vanished. It was insane. And I was so disappointed, or just like looking around to everyone around me, because I was the only person that could see it. And so it was my experience alone. But it's amazing. It
So
really
what do you
was.
think it was?
I have no idea. I have no clue. It blew my mind. I mean, it just I don't know.
It feels friendly, though. I know Henrik and I saw them. We saw lots of the orbs
We
flying
were
around.
there. We were there too. Yeah.
Yeah, they speak very highly of you here, by the way.
Thank you. That's very
good to
nice.
hear.
Yeah.
Have you had their famous yak meat spaghetti?
We have
No.
not had yet. But we did see Artemis who got chased down by a yak. That was just yesterday.
All right. Real nice. Jamie, did you get a chance to see anything?
No, I went out last night with the goggles and I put them on and waited for about 30 minutes. I didn't really see anything, so.
Well, we did see the two UFOs cruising together, and it's hard to know, but they definitely are too far out to be satellites, and the movement that they were doing was inconsistent. It wasn't just like a straight line. So you did get to see two of those flying together, which made it interesting.
It's got to be a lot of, well, it feels like it's different phenomena gathered there. One seems to be the orb kind of floating in, well, it could be even a few feet in front of you in some cases, or kind of in the green field right there at the foothill of the mountains, while others are way up there in the sky that the guys there kind of shot some lasers at or whatnot. So definitely two different phenomena in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, then I gave a talk here yesterday, very well received. People were blown away, of course. I always have to show my stuff before you can see it. So I did a radio show on James Gilliland, As You Wish. And then the next day I did a talk there. And now today we are here with you. So we're keeping busy.
Definitely understand that. Now we're going to talk a little bit about, one of the main topics you guys have been covering for some time now. Basically Hollywood, the occult, propaganda connecting into to mind control. How long have you been talking about this now, Freeman? And Jamie, you've, of course, kind of added on to this and done excellent additions. We've watched some of the stuff beforehand here as well, before we did this. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. But how long have you been doing that kind of work now, Freeman?
Well, I could say that my mother was telling me, Freeman, if you don't stop talking about this weird stuff, you're never going to get a girlfriend. So it's been that long. But now I found the girl writing the book on weird stuff. So, I decided that's the way. So I would say, let's see, publicly, I've been discussing this for 7 years. I was I think your fourth interview on Red Ice.
Way back in 2006, yeah.
Yeah, and so I began walking and talking in 93, preaching, spreading the word. And then by 2005 was given the TV show and, started making the inroads of becoming a quote unquote celebrity. So it's been 7 years of public talking and nearly 20 years of just being me.
So what label do we put on that? Conspiracy evangelist?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
That's good. And Jamie, of course, how long have you been interested in this, Jamie? Did you just first got into this when you hooked up with Freeman or way before that?
No, well, it's interesting because I was raised in a Baptist Christian home, and the Christians have been on the conspiracy trail for as long as I can remember, even back into the early 90s, because they're still waiting for the Armageddon or whatever they're trying to figure out. But my mom would rent bootleg videos from the Bible bookstore, VCR tapes about FEMA camps and the Clinton Chronicles and black helicopters, and she would bring them home, and I'd watch them as a little kid. And so I kind of always knew that the world wasn't what everyone else thought it was. And so I've been introduced to these things very early, and I I was a fan of Freeman before I met him. I was listening to David Icke and Michael Tessarian, Jordan Maxwell, anybody, Red Ice that I could find. And then I found Freeman, and he was the only one that I thought it would be fun to actually meet up with. So I went to Austin and we met, and we had we hit it off, and I said, "Do you have a girlfriend?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, you do now."
No choice, Sarah.
So.
Which of course shocked me. You wander around talking about this stuff and you become a bit ostracized from society.
Yeah.
But that's something that I had to deal with early on, knowing these things as a child, trying to tell people about it. And so I just kind of let go of my ego, and now I don't really care what people say or if they believe me or not, because I've been dealing with it for 20 years or more.
Now, Jamie, how would you say that it's different, I guess, with that background from Christianity and conspiracy, that kind of angle to it, and what you do today? Is there a new angle or area that wasn't highlighted with that background?
That's interesting, because they were always very much into the cartoons and the movies and the kids' toys. They saw the satanic elements in them. They saw the witchcraft elements in them. I wasn't allowed to watch the Smurfs. I wasn't allowed to watch MTV or VH1 or The Simpsons or Married with Children. So I always kind of knew that there was a dark side to entertainment industry.
And the biggest difference, I think, between now and what the Christians were giving her before is that they don't want to read the books on the occult. Jamie's sitting here reading "Thank You, Satan," or what was it? "Satan Wants You," and the rituals of the Church of Satan. And these type of topics would be completely ignored and feared by the Christian researchers. They don't want to open those books. So Jamie has taken this, the next level, being able to actually study the occult.
Well, the thing is, they wouldn't recommend that, regular parishioners of the church read these occult books, but it was okay for a pastor or someone high level up to be studying these things so they could teach you about it. But I just kind of disagreed with that myself and started cracking open these books. And I found something really interesting, is that a lot of the topics in magic have to do with Christianity and praying to the archangels. Lord's Prayer is actually the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram from the Kabbalah. So it's really mashed up, and it's hard to separate what is quote unquote witchcraft from Christianity.
Is there something that is dangerous in reading or going through the content? Because I believe you're right. You hear that just don't analyze it, don't look at it, just stay away from it because it's all evil, and don't learn anything about it. But I mean, personally, I believe we should study something to learn about it more, to kind of demystify the subject. But right. At the same time, I can understand if you're not careful, it might take you places you don't want to go.
Yeah, but I think that attitude is more dangerous than fearing the information is to fear looking at it, because then you don't really learn the history of astrotheology or where, the star of the Magi. Everything that they're talking about in the Bible is very much expounded upon in the Kabbalah and magic and stuff like that. So I think the Christians are missing out on part of their history by not looking at these things.
Well, I think Christianity have been a part of the whole game plan, if you will. Some of the things we're going to examine today. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but it feels to me that if it's the other side of the same coin, if you will. It's this dichotomy that we've been kind of forced to choose between. Either it's Jesus or Satan, and it's very kind of confined, restricted in a way.
Absolutely. I always felt that way when trying to work with Christian exposés, and the answers they have seem so simple, because they always offer, well, you worship Jesus as the answer and Satan is the problem. And so when you're starting to get into what we talk about with high-profile rituals, the occult of Hollywood, things of this nature, you can't do it. It's such a simple job as a Christian to go, well, that's witchcraft and that's Satan, and not ever give you the full understanding of what's necessary to realize why this is going on.
Well, what's funny to me is, all my friends' parents were very strict, and they weren't allowed to watch rated R movies or anything with like kissing or sexual content or anything like that. And it seemed like Disney movies had carte blanche in the household no matter what, because they were quote unquote innocent. And I just always found this very nefarious that the Disney, the cartoons can get in the back door by being innocent, but they're the worst out there, in my opinion.
But today, the updated Disney movies that they're making, they're flirting and there's a lot of sexual innuendos in them.
Definitely. There's a movie called Planet 51 about this little boy who goes to a planet just like ours, but it's aliens. And he's the alien on that planet. And if you watch that with those sexual innuendos in mind, you'll see a ton of them. I couldn't believe it. I was scandalized watching this kids movie like I am usually, because I'm a big kid at heart, really, and I love kid stuff. I love toys and cartoons. I've worked with kids my whole life. I've taught Sunday school. I've kids choir, work with at-risk youth and stuff like that. And so I'm surrounded by toys and cartoons all the time. And now that I have these keys, the trauma-based mind control and the sexual innuendos and stuff, it's almost everything I watch, I'm traumatized by it.
Now, it seems like Hollywood and, all the entertainment industry has gone through a major transformation. There might be an element of, how should I put it, being very innocent in the beginning, although there might be hidden occult things behind the scenes that are, speaking to the subconscious, that are very nefarious, and we can certainly talk about that. But it feels like the whole entertainment industry has gone through a major transformation, and I know that you guys talk about this too. Today, it's very much identifying with the darkness, with the other side of the coin, right?
No doubt about that. And it's funny because a lot of people want to point out the subliminal things inside of Disney or these other films. We tend to highlight Disney because they're just rampant with it. But they want to find these little hidden things like, the 26 frame or something like this, where they're finding something hidden within it, or sex shows up in the tangled hair in the film Tangled and the poster. And to us, this is the tame side of it. This is this was just for marketing, just to make it attached to your brain. But when you just take the storyline, just the open storyline, you find the true purpose of the making of this propaganda. So perhaps we should, discuss a little bit about how Walt Disney is propaganda, and then we could understand how this has actually unfolded, because it's not the hidden stuff at all. It is the straightforward storyline in this picture. So let's stick with Tangled for a second and just analyze the storyline. So what we have is this girl who is rebelling against her mother. Her mother's just trying to take care of her and save her from villainous people like this thief that she's fallen in love with.
But all along, the backstory is her mother's an evil witch. And that's something that I've been tracking, is this, what they're doing to femininity in general, and to motherhood and to sisterhood. And I've noticed that all the princesses, what they have in common is they don't have a mother, or their mother is an evil witch, and they don't have any girlfriends or sisters that are actual true sisters, right? So the only friends they have are animals to relate to. And this was interesting because, we go around and we go from town to town, and we go to all the used bookstores. And sometimes we find some gems. And I found this one by Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan in 1966. And he wrote a book just for women. And I found what he said so interesting, as far as what does it mean to be a satanic witch, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just going to read you some excerpts from his book. It says, a satanic witch always makes full use of her feminine wiles. In order to be a successful witch, one does have to make a pact with the devil, at least symbolically. She must worship the Luciferian element of pride within her. So what we're talking about here is like princess programming. You walk down the aisles of your Walmart or your Target, whatever, giant superstore you happen to be at, and the girls' aisles are all pink. And it's all pink princess, tutus, cooking sets, high heels. I've even seen fluffy handcuffs.
That's right.
For little. Right? And if you go down the boys' aisle, it's all blue, Transformers, Star Wars, and cars. And cars is an interesting thing for boys, and we can get back to that, but I just wanted to keep talking about how Anton LaVey described a satanic witch. It says, if you have good looks and want to be a witch, you must exploit your beauty at every opportunity. And this all goes along, you can say, the princess programming, right? It says, a witch can never get too much attention. Your first duty as a witch is to your appearance. And actually, this title of this chapter is called Bitchcraft. And it's funny because I was writing an article for my book called Project Crazy Bitch. And my theory is that they are trying to make women mentally unstable. And you can see this kind of with the color pink that they're pushing. Victoria's Secret has this whole pink line of clothes, and you see pink everywhere, pink for girls, pink, pink, pink. Anton LaVey says the color pink is always sure to work magic, as it is the color of feminine intimacy. And in another occult book, I read that they can use pink as a color of emotional instability. So this is kind of what we're seeing in women a lot, is the emotional instability, because they're trying to follow this fairy tale that's been laid out for them. I mean, how many times have you seen Disney themes in weddings, right? Yeah. And I don't know what it is like there, but in America, the wedding is a big, big deal. Have you ever seen Bridezillas?
Bridezillas, no. Have you, Lona?
Unfortunately, I have seen
what is that?
Advertisements for that.
So, this girl's engaged, and they do a different one every time, but she just turns into a raging bitch. Like, the stress of getting married. And
the wedding is the pinnacle in a woman's life. It's, the most important day of her life. It's not even about the guy, really. It's just about the ceremony and the appearance of it.
Yeah, and so for them, there's nothing after that, and they've kind of been molding their lives around this fairy tale, and once you get married, it's like the curtain's drawn, and what's next? And so it kind of forms, a schism in the brain where they feel like there's nothing left for them.
Wow.
And
so this is the marketing of the ritual of wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no doubt.
Wow. So what is maybe we can just analyze a few of these kind of components here that you've talked about. There must be some kind of message in No Mother, as you mentioned before, and also maybe we can talk a little bit more about this princess programming that you call it, Jamie.
Okay. Well, what I was talking about before, is like the girls don't have any sister friends, right? And in the book, The Satanic Witch, it says one of the sure signs of potential proficiency in witchcraft is an inability to get along with other women. It says to be a resourceful witch, you must be able to see the bitchiness in other women for exactly what it is. Then in your own way, beat them at their own game. You must learn to be a worse bitch than they.
Wow.
It says what you as a witch accumulate in the way of lust power, and that's the princess programming, right? The worshiping. It says what you as a witch accumulate in the way of lust power from others will in turn give you greater magnetic power over others. A chapter called Fashion, the Witch's Greatest Friend, he explains that the only footwear that a witch should be wearing is a 3-inch heel. So he says your default look, well, if you're trying to enchant someone, you have to kind of tailor your look around what you think would be enchanting to this person that you're trying to cast a spell on or whatever you want from them. But your default look should be something like Samantha from Bewitched, the old 60s with the nice dress and the hair done and the skirt and the stockings and the 3-inch heels. And it's funny because he says that, 2-inch heels are not going to work and 4-inch heels aren't going to work. It has to be this specific 3-inch heel because that gives you the right curvature of your, your derriere and your thighs and your calves and everything. But me think immediately of that show Sex and the City from HBO. Have you seen that?
I've stayed away from it, but unfortunately I know what it is. Yeah,
I have, and it's getting women just to be obsessed with materialism and body worship, and that's all it is to be feminine, is to have designer clothes and have a guy think that you're hot, and that's where it ends.
because you're trying to enchant them. But one of the reoccurring themes in this show is that they all wear Manolo Blahnik high heels, the 3-inch heels, and she won't be caught dead without these 3-inch heels. And even in one episode, she goes into her kitchen and opens up her oven, and it's full of shoes. Nothing in her kitchen is nurturing or nutritious or motherly or feminine. It's all shoes.
Well, that's very interesting. I know you guys talked about this. Maybe we can discuss a little bit more. This is about destruction of the feminine, the separating the woman from the earth, of grounding, literally. What is that all about?
Well, in my opinion, the Trinity is kind of, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, right? Mm-hmm. The Christian Trinity. Well, I interpret the Holy Spirit aspect of it to be the feminine aspect, because what else would it be? You're not going to have a baby. You can't have Father and Son without Mother. So Mother is actually the Holy Spirit, and the earth is the Mother, and that's, the Sophia or the Gaia or whatever you want to call it. This is the So they're actually blaspheming the Holy Spirit every time they kill the mother, every time they torture. It's like you can't watch a movie without them killing or torturing the mother if she's even in the movie.
Now, politically, this comes out in Hebrew. The Holy Spirit is known as the Shekinah, and it is the feminine version of God in Hebrew mysticism. So when we look to things like when they make a play upon the Shekinah, and they blew up Baghdad using the Shekinah, which is Shekinah, that was another display of this destruction of the mother.
Now, who are the writers to these kinds of things? We got to get into this as well, and I can't help to tie it back to the destruction of the feminine. These are men that are transforming, in my opinion, the what it means to be a woman, femininity. What do you think about that, guys?
Walt Disney had a very low opinion of women. They were not allowed to do any of the cartooning. They were only allowed to be colorers, and they were shacked off in a room all alone and worked slave hours. So whenever you were a woman trying to work for Walt Disney, you were absolutely put in your place, according to him.
There are no women animators at the beginning. They were, like you said, locked in the basement, painting cells day in and day out, and they had to ask permission to go to the bathroom. They had a very rigid schedule and a very slavish job. I mean, it sounds fun to color cartoons, but once you're doing thousands of palettes a day, it turns into slavery, basically.
So these are men that hate women, basically.
Yeah. The main artists of Disney were known as the 9 Old Men, and of course this to the Ennead of the ancient Egyptian gods and the 9.
Yeah.
But when you start to look into Disney, if we just want to throw this out there, because Disney on the Front Lines is their war propaganda film. I tell everyone to go get this. You can probably check it out of your library. Disney on the Front Lines. And it's all of their war propaganda cartoons. And in this very film, they boast that Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propagandist, adopted Walt Disney's techniques of using cartoons to program the Nazi youth. Now, Disney put out a film called Education for Death, and this was how to make a Nazi. And they show you how this little boy won't kill. And so, of course, they put a dunce cap on him and laugh at him because he wouldn't kill. And until they finally made him into a killer, and then he was accepted by the rest of the group.
But the interesting thing about that little cartoon is if you watch it, the story of this little Nazi youth, when he falls ill and his mother is caring for him, the stormtrooper comes to the door, knock, 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 and he tells him in German, "You better not coddle that boy or you're going to make him soft." So this is kind of, and it's interesting too because the Nazi party, I hate to say this, but has a lot of roots in homosexuality. And I'm not saying anything about homosexuals. I'm just telling you that this is the truth. And if you read this book called The Pink Swastika, it'll tell you all about it.
Right, yeah.
But basically, they hate anything feminine, even effeminate gays. So that's when they said the Nazis would persecute the gays is they were actually just persecuting the effeminate gays, but the butch gays they would keep because they were better killers.
So there's no feminine at all in the picture here. I mean, again, I go back to Sex in the City, right? And the writers is something that's continuing to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're homosexual writers, and also the fashion designers. Most of them are gay men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gay men telling women how to be women. That's interesting, right?
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, but now they're replacing them with transgender models, replacing women. I mean, I've seen ads where they're males actually modeling bras.
Yeah, we were just walking through Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and they had this big exhibit for Jean-Paul Gaultier, the fashion designer.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And his main character on the poster board was a woman with, it looks like she had the rays of the Statue of Liberty coming out of her head. And then her face was covered in lace, and her mouth was totally covered, and there was a chain link around her head, like a chain.
It was like bounding Lady Liberty as his promotion.
Wow.
So what do they benefit from by binding femininity or holding femininity back?
Well, I just think they're trying to put everything out of balance. That's what, black magic is making everything in disharmony. And when you have the feminine squashed and you have the masculine on top, that's disharmony. And then if you have the feminine on top and the masculine demasculated, then that's out of whack too. So anything that can be extreme, that's what they're going for, I think.
And it keeps everybody seeking their position, their gender position. And so as we were saying with the Princess Warrior programming, when you're walking down your store aisles, you've got all the bubblegum cell phones and the bling and all of these things for the little girls. And then the boys have nothing but war, and even Ultimate Fighting Champion. I saw a UFC toy at Walmart. That blew my mind. But once you've got everybody in this disharmony and they're trying to seek this harmony, the Princess Warrior programming causes the male to go and be a fighter, be in the war program, the military industrial complex, in order to afford the bubblegum cell phones for the girls.
It was the diamonds, right? Marilyn Monroe, the marketing of that to the men, and this is what you have to go get to get the girl kind of thing. So there's no nurturing mothers in the archetypal stories that Disney is putting out that we're talking about. They're turning little girls into, well, I don't know, they're being manipulated, of course, but in the process they're being turned into sexual predators, I guess, and they're confusing the gender roles and everything is happening. So is this part of that kind of the craziness that you talked about before, Jamie, to make girls kind of crazy?
Yes, and I think the princess programming is only the first step, because once you get past that, then you're onto vampires. When you're a tween, you go to Twilight and the supernatural, like things like Katy Perry, E.T., and these dark coupling with fallen angels. Basically, you can't call it anything else but that. And so once you convince a girl that she's a princess, right, she's royalty, well, we know what royalty really is. They're connected to the Alpha Draconans, or however you want to put that, the lizard people, and blood drinking. So the next step from princess is vampire. And I've even taken pictures of T-shirts that say, "Forget being a princess, I'd rather be a vampire."
And we that this might open them up, because maybe there is going to be a revelation here where we do actually find David Icke to be right, or that these people are vampires, or that there is a deeper story in here. I mean, of course, we got Queen Mary and her blood baths. We've got Lady Gaga and her blood bath recently at that hotel with the Masons. And we wonder, because they basically show you, well, here's Edward Cullen, and women are leaving their husbands because they don't live up to his standards. And then we wonder if, they're when people finally get to royalty and they finally get to these people, we find out that they're not actually really vampires. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is to me, again, we go back to that idea of it's about identifying with the darkness. I know, Freeman, you and I talked about that many years ago now, how the movies, the music industry is turning towards this identification of the dark side or the shadow persona that many people have. And it's like a desire, an unconscious desire in that people are drawn to. And they're playing on this at the same time, those who know how to pull the strings, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's this show on HBO called True Blood. Have you heard of that one?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a show about vampires, and the premise of the show is that they've created this synthetic blood called True Blood, and the vampires want to come out of the closet and live amongst the humans, and as equals, because humans don't have to fear them anymore because we've created this True Blood. If you keep watching the show, it's really interesting the politics of trying to what they call mainstream evil into the world. And now, if you get into the later seasons, they're worshiping Lilith and they're drinking her blood, and there's different factions of vampires. Ones that want to stay hidden and worship Lilith and actually feed on people in the dark, and then there's the ones that want to come out and cohabitate and be reformed and drink the true blood. So this, what I think is like, politics is fake and movies are real.
But currently, if you think about it, the quality of souls that's coming in right now is not so good. There's a lot of psychic vampires, so I think that they get off on this kind of stuff. It activates them. It's like a home frequency when they watch that. It's like, yeah, that's me. I need to go eat some food, energy food. You know what I mean?
You can buy bags of blood at your movie stores these days to drink.
Candy blood.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
corn syrup
used for infusions. It says on the label. Yeah, and for me, I've been tracking this, what I found to be the Qliphoth, or the fallen angels. And this began right in the beginning of my studies of deciphering corporate logos and coming to the number 66. Now, as I went through each corporate logo, the pentagram of Walmart or the Target, sun sign of Target, and I got to Phillips 66. And I was like, well, this shouldn't be too hard to decipher. Everything else, every corporate logo I ever deciphered fits into the Masonic ritual and therefore into the Kabbalah. And so I simply went to a Kabbalistic dictionary and looked up the number 66 to figure out what Phillips 66 gas station was all about. And of course, there was also Highway 66. And I came to this revelation of the Qliphoth, is what they're called in Kabbalah, or the fallen angels. It's Azrael, it's Lilith, it's Samael, and they're all listed there as the fallen angels. So I began this theme of following the 66, and it became so consistent that I knew I was on to something. Because even if we bring it up to the modern day, now I track this now, 6 in Hebrew is V, and we've covered this on the show before, so we'll just go through fast. In Hebrew, the letter 6 is V, so when you look at Hitler's Volkswagen, you'll see 2 V's interlaced. That's the 66, the letter of the fallen angels. But lacing them together, making a third V, makes it 666. As I started to look into this, it appeared that this was the sign for the other dimension, because there is a tree of life in the Kabbalah that has 10 sephirah, or ciphers, on it. And in order to go to heaven straight from the base, you have to go through what is known as Da'ath, or the abyss. And in the abyss, this is the area of the Qliphoth, or the fallen angels, or Coronazon, or Leviathan. Any of these type of demonic things that you want to look into are all in the abyss. And you have to cross this. Now, the path that you take across from Malkuth, which is earth, to Kether, which is heaven, is the G. It is the G path on the tree of life. And so this would explain the Masonic G inside of the compass and square. You have to go across the abyss. Aleister Crowley tried this and failed miserably. Anyone that says you dabble in this and you become insane. Well, so I started tracking this very symbolism, and you go to Fringe, the new TV show, the sci-fi, well, it's not that new anymore, but they have an alternate dimension, and it is labeled by FF. Well, guess what? F is 6 in English. So FF, again, is the 66. So I followed this a little further down the path, and I found, so we have Madonna at the Super Bowl. She stands up on a stage and immediately has giant VV under her feet. And you can see this on freemantv.com, under Hollywood Mind Control. She is there with standing on a VV, and the VV makes an OX out of the two crossed V's. And when I looked up OX, which of course is 66 again in English because O is the 15th letter and X is the 24th letter, 1 and 5, 6, 2 and 4, 6, right? So OX, when I looked into Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God, written by Kenneth Grant, one of his accolades in the Ordo Templi Orientis, he says that the OX is actually the mark of the beast. Well, then I look over at X-Men and I see the Beast, the character, and he has, of course, that OX on his chest, as all the X-Men do. And of course, Disney owns Marvel, all right? So let's just keep that square too. So this 66 has been a consistent theme that I've followed, and now I have even brought this to CERN and mind transfer technologies of punching holes into the other dimension and transmitting your soul into it. I have a new article coming out on this in Paranoia magazine, just came out in this edition, so I highly recommend it. I cover the space war and its connections to this alternate dimension and how this 66 and the FX and the OX and all of that fits into this. Well, so here's Madonna on the stage at Super Bowl with all of that symbol repeated over and over again. And then I'm watching the Olympics. And of course, we're dealing with Voldemort battling Mary Poppins. But as they start the Olympics, they have a countdown and they show all the balloons. There's a batch of balloons for 9 and a batch of balloons for 8, and they all explode. When they got to 6, every balloon exploded except for 2 6s, leaving them on the screen. So even in the Olympics, I found this very same symbolism of the fallen angels.
I agree. Would you want to say something on that, Jamie?
Well, if there's another movie by Disney that is being pushed really hard, and some movies are really pushed, and some movies are swept under the rug, like the nice ones, like Mars Needs Moms. That is just ignored. But the one that they're really pushing hard now is called Cars. Have you seen that one?
No.
Well, Cars is a little story about a race car traveling down Route 66. And he gets in trouble and has to, basically the story is about him having to do his time and be processed through the criminal court system.
And he becomes a prison slave, really. He has to do all the work and everything. It's a prison workforce that they're implanting in the children, along with subservience to the system. So one thing that we see is as we go through the different store aisles, we'll see which ones are really highlighted, like Clone Wars, Clone Victory. These are very common things that you'll see inside of, and if you do see a Star Wars character, they'll have a lightsaber or some type of warfare going on. But the other main one that we saw all the time in everything was cars. And so we're like, all right, why are they pushing cars? Well, it shows subservience to the court systems and political prisoners or, prison workforce.
If you go to Disneyland right now, their new grand opening section of their theme park is all dedicated to Cars, the movie Cars.
No.
So they've an entire, Cars playland that you can go and dissociate in.
Oh, nice. Now, Kabbalism, occult Kabbalism. I don't know if there are two different factions or if it's just the one. Is it? What would you say to that, Freeman? Is it Freemasonic? Is it Judaic? Is it something else?
The Kabbalah?
Yeah.
Well, the story of the Kabbalah it goes back to Moses of going up to the mount and receiving the 10 Commandments in the Ark of the Covenant. And it was said that he went up 3 times receiving the law, and then he received the spirit of the law, and then he received the soul of the law. And so it was in that was the Kabbalah, and he brought this back to the people. So that's the history of how Kabbalah came up. But what I realized was, as I was reading Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, and over 70 times he mentions the Kabbalah. And so then I realized that the Kabbalah and Freemasonry are the same.
Because this seems to be, well, many of the things in numerology and everything else has an imprint, and it seems to go back to the Kabbalah or Kabbalism or the numerology aspect as well. And so... And again, we're back to that idea. What side of the coin is this? Is it Luciferianism? Is it God or Yahweh? Or is it... I mean, I always have a feeling that they're very similar, these entities. And either you pray to one side of the coin or the other. There's not much option or room here.
Yeah, that is the big question, isn't it? And that goes back to what we were talking about with Christianity, avoiding these studies, because can magic be used for good? And could these Kabbalistic beliefs bring us understanding that lead us beyond? I mean, people like Madonna obviously believe so.
Esther, right?
Oh, yeah, and going off and doing rituals at the cemetery with the rabbis in Israel. She's even changed her name down to Kabbalah, too, with Madonna removing all of the vowels and making it mDNA. Which I found very curious because I'm starting to get into the clones and drones story and getting into cloning of humanity, and we find that Madonna has a DNA sweep team.
Yeah, that's right.
All of arena masters, because she has to bring in her whole DNA cleanup team to remove any parts of her DNA that might have been left behind.
People call her crazy, but I think she knows something. She knows what could be done potentially with those small little traces left behind.
Yeah, because currently on the International Space Station right now are 6 adult stem cells seeking longevity for humanity. We got this along with the Archon's Genome Project. I don't know if you know about this coming out in September.
For sure. The Archon X Prize and the Genomics Contest, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, in the history of the Archons wanting to disturb our DNA from the Nag Hammadi text, and, but they can't do it themselves. They have to convince us to do it. So, here, let's offer them some of these pantacles we call money, and they'll get them to do it for us. I don't know. That one blew my mind when I'm going through all of this stuff.
Now, the 66 is interesting. I mean, that even goes back to the Clone Wars that you mentioned before. It seems to be another kind of, code in there. And, I couldn't help to agree with you when you talked about the Olympics as well. And again, I saw in the Olympics, I mean, it's a vast subject. We need a whole show to microanalyze that alone. But no doubt there's a very, very dark message. It's about satanic. It's about the devil. Look at the poems that were read, the association. Even the building of Zion was this kind of mechanical industrial city with XXX written on the, the pipes, the chimneys. It was the XXX Olympiad 666. Very dark stuff. And the nightmares of the children and the bedtime stories. What is that all about? Why is this association again with the darkness so prominent in these times? Do either of you have an idea about that?
Well, I kind of wish I had made a list of what we would expect to see in the Olympic opening ceremonies, because, a dark sorcerer, a dark reptilian sorcerer, the death of babies. The only thing I didn't really see was the Scarlet Woman or a blood sacrifice. But when we have this whole story now, Mary Poppins popping into this story, John D. in 007 with the Queen, of course. But Mary Poppins to me was pretty intriguing because Jamie had done such a deep investigation of Mary Poppins. It's one of her favorite movies. And, we always have to flip things back and forth because obviously it's got something in there they want us to key in on.
Well, I have to say that I love Mary Poppins. That is my ultimate favorite movie, and it is a Disney movie, so that's interesting too. But I just find it so rich in symbolism of the kind of magic that I'm trying to put out there, which is called slack magic. And if you watch, there's one scene where she tells you something very esoteric and valuable, and it's in a song called A Spoonful of Sugar. Have you heard that song?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So she's telling you that if you view the world as a child does, and everything that you do is play, then nothing is going to ever be hard work because you're just playing a game at it. And this is something I've heard from, Ascended Masters. I've heard it from Ramtha, heard it from Abraham, Esther Hicks and the channelings of Abraham. I keep hearing this over and over. If you're playing, it's not working. And that song really embodies that philosophy. And then there's other things, about laughter and family, and she actually brings the family back together. And the dad is a very stiff upper lip British. Everything has to be right on time, like clockwork, and she comes in and shows him that that's not the way. And I just love the the moral about where the little boy takes his allowance to feed the birds instead of depositing it in the bank where he can, be part of railways through India and all other sorts of exploitations that they're trying to get him to deposit his money in. But he says, no, I want it to feed the birds. So he actually makes the bank crash because he starts a run on the bank when he runs out with his money, and everyone's like, they won't give someone their money, so everyone takes their money out. He crashes the bank. Dad loses his job. But in the end, it's okay because, they still find laughter. And the family is reunited. So I really like Mary Poppins. I was surprised to see it, but I thought that was the perfect counterpoint to Voldemort.
Yeah. Now, another theme in this is it's about the destruction of the family in a lot of the movies. Again, just the fact that a mother is usually missing, and not that it's wrong to have animals as friends, but that's the Disney theme anyway. It's always that. And it's nothing about the family unit and that as a core. This is about disassociating that and, creating, as you said, Freeman, as well, this either the soldier or the warrior, or the mind control princess. So it's just interesting to see the Mary Poppins theme come up in that scenario. Then was anything taken away from it, or did you see that they were trying to destroy the message of Mary Poppins in the opening ceremony? Jamie, any comments on that?
Not really at all. I was really shocked to see that, because that would be my answer to, defeating the dark side is Mary Poppins and slack magic. But it's interesting, in that movie, there's a strong female character, the mother. She's actually a suffragette for women's rights in the show. But then when her husband comes home, she hides all the paraphernalia and doesn't talk about it. But at the end, it all comes back together, and they're a family unit, flying a kite in the park together. So.
And speaking on that family unit, the movie Mars Needs Moms. Now, we're friends with Dan Fogler, who is the star in that. And actually, I will be in his new film, Don Peyote. Should be coming out sometime soon, between now and December. So be on the lookout for Don Peyote. This is Dan Fogler's awakening film. What he did is he took all the money Disney paid him, and he made his own awakening film. And he went around and interviewed and filmed and played the character Warren Allman to go around and find the answers. And I did play a fairly major role in the film, but they had to cut most of my scenes because we filmed it in the Mason Lodge, and they wouldn't allow them to use the footage. So actually, my parts are going to come out more. I'm in the film, but my real parts will come out more when the documentary of Don Peyote comes out. So be on the lookout for Don Peyote. But the thing was, we were sitting around talking with Dan Fogler while he was filming Mars Needs Moms. And we started telling him about, the death of the mother and all of these things. And he's like, oh, well, I'm in a Disney film. And we're like, yeah, which one? And he's like, Mars Needs Moms. And we're laughing because, we didn't know that. And we were just telling him about the death of the mother and everything. In that film, it shows you that if you're a really good child and your mother takes very good care of you, she'll get abducted by aliens and be killed. So that's kind of the opening moral of the story. But what happens in the end is that these Martians discover that they weren't separate beings. You see, they kept the men and women separated in the film the whole time.
Well, actually, they threw the babies in the boy babies in the trash.
Yeah, the boy babies
Mars
would go down and trash shoot, and the girls would remain as the militant forces, and they were all controlled by robots that were programmed by the mothers they abducted from Earth. Well, in the end, they find this family unit, a painting on the wall in a cave, showing them all together as a family unit, and this brings the whole society back together.
So they actually find the Holy Trinity, mom, dad, and baby painted on the wall, and they take that back.
And this breaks the power of the militant overlord, which is also a woman.
Who looks like a man.
Yeah.
Like an ant.
Yeah, a fascist man.
But what happened is they yanked Mars Needs Moms out of the theater before it ever had a full run. And Fogler really thought that was a conspiracy of its own because it was too positive. And they actually yanked Mars Needs Moms long before it needed to be yanked.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to Mary Poppins for a second because for me, when I look at her, she always kind of creeped me out, actually, Jamie. I look at her like I look at Batman. You don't know if he's good or if he's bad. You know, she's smiling, but you're like, wearing black. I kind of took it during the Olympic ceremony. All the kids, you know, they're sick, basically. And then she shows up and it's like, oh, a little bit of sugar makes the poison go down. You know what I mean? It's like, take some more pills or eat this food with all the sugar and it's kind of killing you and it's going to make you sick and you're going to have problems.
That's another take on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely one way of looking at it. And it's interesting that Mary Poppins is a witch, right? She has magical powers. She floats around in an umbrella. She can levitate. You know, she wears black, like you said. All these things that you would associate with witchcraft. So it is true that. And then there's the umbrella again, which is a classic symbol of trauma-based mind control. So there is that.
There was another thing I wanted to bring up again. I mean, a whole show could be done, obviously, about the Olympics, and it should be done. One of the things were because you mentioned the fallen angels before, I want to tie it back to that. The pandemonium portion of the Olympics opening ceremony, Boyle described a section of the ceremony as pandemonium in reference to the capital of hell in Paradise Lost. And he even, the actor there, Kenneth Branagh, I think he read a passage during that scene as well, or maybe it was slightly before. But again, just to re-emphasize that, pandemonium is the capital of hell in the epic poem Paradise Lost by the 17th century English poet John Milton. And it goes on here to say that pandemonium basically means all or every, one portion of it, and the other meaning is little spirit or little angel. And a Christian interpretation of this means little demon, or just a demon. So it is the name invented by John Milton for the capital of hell. It is the high capital of Satan and his peers, built by these little demons, or actually the fallen angels, at the suggestion of Mammon at the end of Book 1 in Paradise Lost. And that's written in 1667. So we have the 66 and close on 1666 when London burnt down and all that as well. But what is this fallen angel theme? Maybe we can talk a little bit more about that and elaborate on this. Is this what they're trying to bring to Earth? Freeman, you mentioned CERN before. Are they trying to invoke these fallen angels and bring them back? Or how should we interpret this, do you think?
The first time that we're introduced to these fallen angels in the Bible, in the King James Bible, is they are lusting after Earth women, right? So they just find Earth women so beautiful that they can't control themselves, so they have to go and mix with them. And of course, this creates the Nephilim, or the giants, and the Earth women couldn't even bear the babies because they were too big, and they would come out eating their mother. They would just like claw their way out, according to the Book of Enoch and stuff like that. And that fits exactly parallel with the Twilight series. Have you seen these movies?
I've seen one, I think, although I don't even remember it. It was
horrible.
So bad.
They were so bad. We didn't even finish watching it, actually.
Really bad, yeah. But the fourth one, actually, she does get pregnant while she's still a human by her vampire husband, and he has to tear the baby out with his teeth because she can't bear the pregnancy, and she actually has to start drinking blood and doing all these things to keep herself alive because she has a demon child inside her. And so this is what tweens are reading.
Twilight language, the Twilight Zone,
Yeah, well, and there's a thing called the Twilight language. If you look that up, a lot of people have written about how the dark occultists use this thing called the Twilight language. So that's another tie-in with that.
Well, we are going to be on our way from here after we visit Yelm. As you know, we are traveling around in our Mystery School Mobile Media Lab, Miss Emily, our school bus. We've been on the road for 10 months now, almost a year.
Oh, wow.
Trying to, I hope we can talk about this in the second hour, showing the friendship agenda and how people don't need to fear a collapse. That's our real ambition in showing what we're doing. But we can get into that later. So on our travels, we are going to go visit Rex Diabolus Church, who was a member or one of the high priests of the Church of Satan. And I have interviewed him before. He's on my podcast on Freeman TV. And I'm really excited to get to talk to him again because it's going to tie into CERN and all of these different things. Rex Diablo's church has now left the Church of Satan, finding them not satanic enough for him. And religion now called the Chaos Imperium. And he is building what he calls the Ragnarok engine. And this is a device to open a portal for the old ones to enter. And very similar looking to the Hellboy type scenario that he has going on in the movie. So here we're going to find out if Rex is actually going to, he's turning this thing on December 21st, 2012. And it is his hope that the old ones will actually come out and destroy the New World Order.
Oh, really? That's a different take on that.
Isn't it? That's why I hate to really dig and pick his brain on this. So that ties into the whole CERN idea and what's going on. And we can get deeper into that in the second hour.
All right, let's do that, guys. Let's take a short little break here between the segments. We'll carry on with more in a bit, so stay with us. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking to Freeman and Jamie, and I have Lana with me here in the studio as well. Now, much more to discuss, much more to get into. It's very interesting listening to this about the occult, Hollywood, mind control. We're talking about children's stories, tying into Disney and everything else. And I thought we could begin the second hour talking a little bit here about magic and sorcery and how this is being used on many people, unbeknownst to them, of course. There's a element of psychology in this. There's an element of speaking to the unconscious in this. And there are some differences here, subtle, but maybe, important difference to distinguish between. Jamie, maybe we can talk a little bit about that first, how magic has been used on most people, and especially through the media and through the channels that you guys have been monitoring and watching.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because, like I said, when I was a kid and the Christians were watching very closely the kids' cartoons and movies, they were always watching for the magic element, and they found it in a lot of places. And they were really quick to just condemn anything magical as satanic, and I don't take that view at all. But there are some definitions and some distinctions that I would like to make about what is magic and what is sorcery. So what I'm seeing is people are starting to wake up in all different ways. They're starting to realize, the world isn't what they think. They can't depend on these institutions that have been set up, and nothing is really stable. And another thing that they're waking up to is these, supernatural abilities that we should have, but they're being replaced by technology, in my opinion. So things like telepathy, we should be able to communicate with each other, but instead they give us cell phones. So it's kind of like a placebo of an ability that we should have, and they interject the technology in the middle and make that the mode of operation. So what I would say about magic, well, there's a couple definitions. Aleister Crowley said that magic is the art of using your will to make changes in the natural world. And then now we see a definition that magic is a change in consciousness to make changes in the natural world. Mm-hmm. Aleister Crowley would say that, it's your will forced upon nature, but now we would say that it's your will forced upon your own consciousness to change yourself, and that makes a change in the world. So that's what a magician would be, is someone who is concerned about his self and his own consciousness, his own path, his own truth. He's not really trying to force his opinions or his will force on other people, but sorcery is that to the extreme. It's trying to impose your will and cause a mass effect, basically, which is the name of a video game, Mass Effect. So anytime you're trying to make a big splash, that could be considered sorcery.
And that's what we have in the media.
Mm-hmm.
Now, media means something in between. It's a communicator. It's like a wire, if you will. Mm-hmm. Have you guys come any closer to who is behind the communication, if the media is just kind of the middleman in this?
Well, it's interesting that the media, it's like when they're growing cultures in a petri dish, it's actually called a culture, right?
Yeah.
the petri dish is called the culture media, so it's like the little cesspool where your little germs can grow.
Ain't that right? Yeah.
So yeah, trying to find the head of this Hydra is not the easiest task. And of course, we have highlighted Disney and Disney Co. as one of the main perpetrators. And I think their video game company, Electronic Arts, which is owned by Disney as well, put out Mass Effect. And in this way, they are causing Mass Effect. I mean, the video games absolutely are one of the prime meme generators that they're putting out to put this type of thinking into people's heads, not to even, just to create war people in their, all these slaughter games that are out there.
Yeah, I know people that have lost friends and family to the video game World of Warcraft. They just started playing that and they never saw them again, and it's almost like they were dead or something. It's like, yeah, they started playing World of Warcraft and never heard from them again. It's
like an addiction, many of those games. We heard they tried to in court anyway, Breivik up in Norway. He was a World of Warcraft gamer, I guess, and they, to a certain extent, try to blame his activities on the game. Now, if that's true or not, I don't know, but it definitely seemed to be that a lot of people are changing their behavior and changing their life because of this game.
Yeah, some of the nicest people we know just love killing.
A really devout Christian we know, he says he's the best in the world at Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Here's a Christian guy signing on to just slaughter people on end, and he does it for hours at a time. And I was like, how do you reconcile this with your beliefs? But there's some kind of cognitive dissonance going on there, I think.
Well, I'm new to the video game world, but I have to say they're not all created equally, because the puzzle games are really fun.
There's a lot of fun games out there.
It kind of works another part of your brain.
Now, here's a curious note as we're talking about who's in charge of this situation. And what has consistently popped up into my reality is the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Because as I start to decipher and looking into the corporations and who founded these corporations, who were the elite masters in the creation of our civilization, it consistently goes back to the Scottish Rite Freemasonry. And I recently interviewed an insider of the Supreme Council. Now, they have two Supreme Councils. One's in Washington, D.C. Most people know about this. It's called the House of the Temple. It's Supreme Council of the 33rd. And then there's another that's in Dallas. And he actually said that they are moving all of the documents and everything that they have into the subterranean chambers under the Dallas Supreme Council and moving over there. I found that intriguing. But what came out of this interview was that there is this split coming. And as you say, many people are starting to awaken to the nefariousness of keeping things secret, of keeping things occult. And so now many of these Masons are coming forward and saying, I no longer want this to be occulted. I want to bring it to the people. I think that our teachings could actually help the world. And anyone that wants to stand and say, well, Freemasonry are all Satan worshipers or they're the devil or whatever, you can't say that because they're behind all the things that everyone considers great. So if you're especially an American and you're trying to say that Freemasonry is Satanism, you're in a quandary because everything that you believe, from life, liberty to the pursuit of happiness to the ideas of democracy and the idea of elections, which of course are all fraudulent in my mind because I've predicted too many of these events. But these concepts come out of Freemasonry and the brotherhood that they try to engender. But what I see is the split happening. So we have the York Rite of Freemasonry, where you are becoming a Master Mason in your 3rd degree, and then you get these teachings. The Scottish Rite are the 4th through the 32nd degree and up to the 33rd, which is the honorary degree. And in this level, these seem to be the more nefarious groups in the Scottish Rite. And we have this secret war of the rites, the York Rite versus the Scottish Rite. And all of the York Rite Masons tell me that the Scottish Rite are the New World Order, that they are the ones that are standing in the way of this revelation, of this unveiling of their knowledge for the public.
Now, is it Luciferianism, though? Can we make a distinction here and not call it Satanism, but a form of Luciferianism?
Well, I would agree with that. And you had brought up Milton's Paradise Lost, and really this is where we got the concept that Satan was Lucifer. There is nowhere in the Bible that states that Lucifer is Satan. People try to make it into that because there's two sentences. One saying, and Satan fell like lightning from heaven, which lightning from heaven actually in Hebrew is Barack Obama. So, and Satan fell like Barack Obama. And then there's the other phrase where they actually mention the word Lucifer, how thou have fallen. And so taking these two statements, they decided that Lucifer was Satan. So when we have to kind of break these two stories apart, and we do find that the Luciferian concepts are the idea of intelligence and the idea of Prometheus, the mankind becoming awakened to his own nature. And this is where Manly P. Hall says that you have the seething powers of Lucifer's in your hands once you've controlled your own self. So
well, that's a very interesting point, Freeman. Do you think that is that what's going on a grander scale? If we're for a moment can zoom out from the conspiratorial, and I mean, we definitely need to have that in the back of our minds. I'm not saying that, but is there a larger process going on here? Some people call it initiation, and we could argue that the culture and mankind as a whole is going through some kind of dark experience right now. I think that there is a reason why people also are drawn towards this and identifying with it. Batman is turning into the dark side. It's about the Twilight Zone here again. We're back to going through something dark to, I don't know, identify with it, learn from it, try to understand ourselves. I believe that there is a bigger cycle here. They are not in control of everything. I think they're surfing on a wave, if you will, of these energies that are happening right now. If it's good, if it's bad, don't know. Any input on that?
I would agree with that there needs to be kind of a dark night of the soul before we can find our light, and that they are riding that very wave and projecting it out there as well. And curiously, as we look to the comic book for when the Dark Knight Rises, and in the comic book back in 2000, when Batman, Bruce Wayne, had his back broken and was replaced, they had to replace the bat suit, or replace the Batman inside of it, and they chose Azrael. And Azrael, of course, is one of the fallen angels.
One of he belonged even to the Seraphim order, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then then Batman became this bloodthirsty killer, ripping out people's spines, and everyone freaked out about this. You know, they're used to their detective Dark Knight, not this spine-ripping killer. And they actually had to have Bruce Wayne come in and fight Azrael to take the mantle of the Bat back. So I found that very interesting in the connection with the movie, and then, of course, the Aurora shootings. I do believe that they believe that until we reach our darkest hour, we will not reach our highest light. So we always feel like these guys are doing what they think is best. And we feel like most people in the world are doing what they think is the right thing to do. So even if we consider them evil, they have their own personal reasons for doing these things that aren't just strictly evil. I do feel that they believe they have to take us through even a near-death experience to get us to rise to the height that they want us to be at.
But this is sorcery, as you mentioned, Jamie, because now they're in the realm of manipulating the masses. They're trying to influence what direction everyone out there in the world should take, instead of focusing on their own enlightenment, if they want to walk the path of darkness to arrive at that, which is obviously an oxymoron. If it's a truth in there or not, that could be argued, certainly. But it's still, messing with the masses, basically.
Well, this is the story of the movie Watchmen by Alan Moore. The superhero, smartest man in the world, he decides that the best plan is to just set off all these bombs and, so this can bring the world back together. And at the end, you see this poster after the nukes have gone off, or I don't know, they're not nukes, they're something else. But after they've all made their destruction and everybody's kind of building things back up again, it flashes to this billboard and it says, you know in your heart it's the right thing.
That's the last thing you see.
No, so is that what they're trying to do? Could that be argued that they're trying to, again, initiate the, as we know, we look at it, we say, but, behind terrorism, behind the bombing, the false flag events and everything to get something, they're trying to get something going here, to put it mildly.
Yeah, it's the character, the megalomaniac who thinks he knows what's best for everyone. And he can just manipulate and kill anyone he wants to bring about this peace, but at what cost,
Or is this the Archons in control and they're getting hungry, so they're trying to create more darkness and chaos so they can feed and get stronger?
That could be it too. We watch BBC's Torchwood, and
Now, let's just consider the symbolism of Torchwood, because I just want to throw this out there real quick. There was one production company that was Phoenix Pictures, and they use a friction match as their icon. And of course, they put out the films Sixth Day about human cloning. They put out Holes with Sigourney Weaver about child labor camps. And then they put out Apt Pupil about Nazi worship from Stephen King. Phoenix Pictures would use a friction match as their logo. And if you look Lucifer up in the dictionary, you will find that it is a friction match. Lucifer is a friction match. And so now when we go to Doctor Who and their Torchwood branch off, Torchwood, of course, would be a Lucifer. Okay.
Yeah, so one series of episodes in the Torchwood, they are in contact with these aliens called the 456 who visited Earth, and they were much more powerful, capable of destroying everything, blah, blah, blah. And they said, give us some children. So they gave them some children and they left for a couple decades or whatever. And all of a sudden they came back and they came in contact with all the world leaders in secret. And they said, we want 10% of your children. And there was nothing they could do about it. It was either give us 10% of your children or we destroy your planet. And so they had to comply. The end had a happy ending kind of, but I just thought this was so interesting. They said in the show that they want the children for their adrenal juices and because they're delicious.
Yeah.
And they make happy.
I've heard that many times before. It's kind of a adrenochrome. They feed on the adrenal gland and the stressed out meat or blood even that are hormones released into. It's very gruesome.
Well, that's interesting because that's one of the big problems right now. It's adrenal fatigue syndrome. It's on the rise.
Wow. So it's like all of society or civilization, mankind anyway, is being pushed to the edge of our capability right now, and many people are being, drained, literally.
Yeah, and they're selling their children right to the aliens or the archons or the dark side, whatever you want to call it. If you're in conspiracies and you think you know what's going on and you're still taking your children to Disneyland and Disney World and renting these movies and dressing like a princess and stuff like that, then you've got a long way to go, in my opinion, because, this dressing up thing is really interesting because, like I said in that other interview, when you're doing a ritual, you want to make all your senses attuned to this one entity that you're trying to invoke or evoke or whatever you're trying to do. And what they call the costumes and the music and the movies is self-transformative psychodrama. So this is an actual magical working that you're doing when you sit your little girl down in front of Cinderella with her hat and wand and she's singing and got the toys all around her. This is straight from Church of Satan, called self-transformative psychodrama.
While eating some Hannah Montana cereal.
Yeah, that whole thing is a big subject I know as well. What are they doing with the kids here? There's some kind of transformation going on here.
Definitely.
Making them older before their time, influencing them with topics that they aren't mentally prepared for, introducing all these sexual concepts into their world. You see the little girls singing along with the songs and saying, well, if you want to get with this, you better pay for it, or you better put a ring on it, or, hypersexualizing children, which is forcing them to become adults prematurely, or at least semblances of adults. And in this, they have destroyed the creation of the imagination. You know, Disney says they capture your imagination. And
Literally, yeah.
that's the true key to all of magic is the imagination. So if they can manage to capture your imagination and destroy your innocence, then these ways they diminish your magical powers.
Well, there's no childhood anymore, and in that when that happens, we have people who don't go through the steps of maturing, I think, in the right way. So when they do grow up, people actually remain like children as well. That might seem like an oxymoron, but when you look around, there's not a lot of adults out there. There's a lot of grown-up children out there.
Yeah, I've even heard 11-year-olds say they were bisexual just because Lady Gaga said that. They don't even know what they're saying, but they're open to it because their heroes are saying this.
Are they? That's a curious, question. I'm wondering what they're doing there. They're obviously they're trying to manipulate children at a young age with sexuality and confusing the roles before they're even, as you say, Jamie, had an opportunity to identify with that or discover that. So what's going on? What is this for, do you think?
Well, like I say, the main purpose being to remove the ideas of imagination, to disassociate the child from their little inner world, which is where all magic happens. Whereas when I was a child, I would be out in a bush, and that bush became an entire world, and I could live in there for hours, not even realizing time was passing. This is the true essence of being a magician, when you can get to these type of mental states. So what they've done is destroyed all of those type of play and brought you into a psycho manipulated world where everything is coming to you through the media stream. So you no longer... Halloween to me is a classic example where we used to make up costumes and go out and try to be something unique. Whereas now everybody's trying to dress up as their favorite movie character or cartoon character, and we've lost all sense of our own imagination.
Yeah, they're noticing around the world that children's play is exactly the same because they've got exactly the same movies to emulate, the same dolls from the movie, the clothes from the movie. Everything about their childhood basically is infiltrated with these characters and these archetypes. And, I've even seen little girls playing with the Barbies and they say, okay, now pretend mom is dead.
Wow.
And this is the world culture. This is the new world order to me. There's no differences in many countries anymore. We're being fed with the same culture, the same, petri dish culture that you mentioned before, Jamie. And I think we're beginning to see the emergence of what they would like to see as a future civilization. I know Michio Kaku has talked about this on CNN or NBC, wherever he was, talking about Madonna and blue jeans, Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's all the same. That's the world culture. And obviously, this goes into the music industry as well. We haven't even talked about that yet. The whole teenage entertainment scene with the music industry. And we can see the same symbols and the same programming going on there, but a little bit in a different fashion, right?
Certainly, Miley Cyrus, before she was 18 at the Teen Choice Awards, was displayed on stage coming out of a trailer. So this is kind of showing as you lowly trailer park dwellers. And then she erupts from this and comes out. And in order to make it, she is lifted up onto an ice cream cart with a stripper pole and begins to perform stripper moves at the Teen Choice Awards, showing the children that this is how you make it. You come out and you prostitute yourself. So this was the same for the intro to Anna Nicole's show, where she's shown coming out of her trailer, and then she gets on the stripper pole, and then she marries a Nazi billionaire and gets all the money, right?
Is this pedophilia? How far down in the ages are they going to go?
Well, that's the end of the conspiracy.
Right, go for that.
Is pedophilia, basically. There's a good show about that in the series South Park called The Return of Chef. And this was an interesting show because the character that played Chef, Isaac Hayes, I think he was a Scientologist, and they kept on making fun of Scientology, so he quit the show without giving them any notice. So they had to make a show about how Chef is leaving the show. He dies. And in the show, Chef goes off to join this organization called the Super Adventure Club. And he comes back, and he's in the cafeteria, and there's something not right about him. You know, he's all skitzed out, his brain, he's talking weird. He's saying, I want to make love to the children. and in reality, these are just clips that they had cut from previous shows to make this show, you know, because the actor wasn't doing the show anymore. So they were, you know, mixing up his voice. And so he was saying, I want to make love to the children and do the boys in the butt and all this stuff. And go to rescue their friend, and they find out that the Super Adventure Club was actually a high-class club for world leaders to fly around and have sex with little children. Or what they call the Marklars, or these, you know, little essences in their bloodstream that they get off on.
And so then you've also found this in the satanic works that you're reading as well, right? And then the idea of the Royal Arch actually being anal sex.
That's not my personal theory, but I've heard that one.
Okay.
The quickest way I've heard to get yourself demon-possessed, that's what they do in the most darkest rituals, you know, to traumatize, because the pain goes right up the spinal column, and it opens up, you know, what they call the Eye of Horus and all this weird stuff.
How much have you not heard about this within Hollywood as well? What was the two guys' name again? The Coreys, right? He was intended to write a book about this to expose Corey Feldman, and then was Corey Haines. And they talked about this extensively, that all the Hollywood moguls were like molesting them. And I mean, we have Macaulay Culkin in there as well, with hanging out with Michael Jackson. It seems to be, you know, prevalent within Hollywood.
And movies now, they're showing it more and more. I know we've been keeping track of that. And it's almost like from the perspective of the pedophile too, like, feel sorry for me kind of thing.
Identifying with that again, or normalizing it through comedy, just laughing at it kind of thing.
Well, first they have to create the pedophiles. So that was the generation, you know, in the 90s, making teens sexy or little girls sexy. So you have to cultivate them. And then when they're adults, you can put them in positions that you want them. And the culture is more open to that as well now.
Wow. So what is this all about? Who's yeah, it's very difficult. Who's behind that? I mean, can we get any closer to because this seems to be very organized, like a big plan. Is it the fallen angels behind this, and to again disassociate people, use their energy, or is it more mundane? Is it just a human satanic network? And not that that's any more comforting, of course not. But what do you guys think? Any theories?
I think the pedophilia thing and the child sacrifice thing is as old as time. It's as old as Atlantis. So it's been going on way before you were born, and it'll continue. But now it's in the mainstream. Like I'm saying, the vampires are trying to mainstream.
Yeah.
And they're bringing it out, and they're making everyone want to be like them.
Yeah, I wish we could get down to the core and say, okay, these are the guys that are perpetrating this, you know, manipulation of mankind. And of course, you know, my research consistently went back to the Freemasons, but as I kept going deeper and deeper, you find all these appendant bodies and outside orders. But with my interview with the Supreme Council member, he absolutely said that the Supreme Council were dark magicians, and that the people in charge of Freemasonry were dark magicians, and that they were also all members of the Ordo Templi Orientis, which is a sexual practice, magical order where they practice sex rituals. And so we found that although they would never discuss their rituals inside of the OTO, inside of the Scottish Rite Lodge, they would openly discuss all of their affiliations with Freemasonry while they were in the OTO. But the Scottish Rite, or the Supreme Council, kept saying, we cannot allow this image to be attached to us. So for now, I have the Scottish Rite as the height of my conspiracy. But then when we start to look to this puzzle, it always goes back to the bloodlines. So it's not like you could just be a 33rd degree Freemason and be a part of this system. So it is a particular bloodline force that is causing most of the strife. So when we look, we find Brittany related to Biden or Cheney, I don't remember now. We find Brad Pitt related to Barack Obama. We find Madonna related to Hillary. And we find George Bush related to them all. And then all of this goes back to Vlad the Impaler. And if you don't believe any of this, this isn't my research. This is straight from Us Magazine, you know?
Yeah, and they dug it out from the, what was it, a genealogical record. I think it's a publication over in England, forget the name of it now, but that's apparently where they dug this info out from.
Right. And so now we find that there's not simply a brotherhood connection or a secret society connection, but there is this bloodline trace. And to me, it is this, perhaps this race of humans that are maybe crypto-terrestrials. They don't look like crypto-terrestrials, but they seem to have a particular bloodline that is causing most of this. So, you know, maybe we can find it in there.
If you wanted me to point a finger at an organization that is very predatory towards children, I'd have to say the Catholic Church, you know, since its beginning has been founded on, I mean, look what's coming out now.
Sure.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So it's all coming.
And it seems to be, again, prevalent in many different industries with people from all walks of life as well. So it's very the same thing as Freemasonry. Obviously, not all Freemasons are around and do this kind of stuff. It's like the circles within these groups, inner circles that connect in some kind of fashion. And maybe there isn't really one denominator, one that everyone links into, but there is like a chain and interlinked underneath. So it seems to be an inner circle anyway.
Definitely. And if you want to get an idea about the mentality of this inner circle, I would say watch the series Game of Thrones from HBO.
Mm-hmm. How so? Yeah, I've watched a little bit of that. How does that play into this?
Like, everybody that would be considered royalty is just a megalomaniac, killer, psycho.
And they're all like, well, we got to follow the king.
Yeah, and they're like, worship the king, long live so-and-so. And I'm like, he's a murderer. Like, why would you be worshiping? So if I could tell people to do anything, I would just say ignore them. And
right.
Yes, you know, here we get to solution think, and a lot of people want to be in opposition of what's wrong with the world instead of being in a proposition of finding the true path of our soul's purpose. And this is why I'm pretty much anti.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think that's the right approach. Otherwise, you end up still within the dialectic. Just because you're oppositional to whatever group you don't identify, if you go 180 degrees from that, you're still going to be within the bounds of where they want you to be. And yet again, people get caught in the left and the right, which is, I mean, come on. It's two sides of the same thing. It's controlled. This is where they want you to be. So what you're saying, Freeman, is transcend outside of this and take what's rational, if you can, from one of the sides, or just leave it all together and find your own path.
I mean, I would say stop worshiping these people. These, like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard little girls say, I love Lady Gaga. And it really grates on me because they all say it in the same way. They say, oh, I love Lady Gaga. And I'm like, you're 11. Like,
yeah.
What are you talking about? And so they're taking our love and they're not giving anything back. You know, does Lady Gaga love you back? I don't think so. Do these videos make you feel good about yourself?
So what we were seeing is that, you know, they've established these foundations. And so you go back to ancient Egypt and you look up the first forms of magic practiced, and they were talismans and contracts. And so you can make a contract with the devil, you can make a contract with a god, or you could create a talisman that would create that energy that you wanted to invoke. And of course, these are the two forms of magic that these elite and secret societies have used to control humanity all this time, being money and corporations. Both are completely, well, they're just forms of magic. They don't exist, you know, they're both just pieces of paper. But once they are crafted, then a being comes into being, a golem, if you will. like a corporation. And now we've given them more rights than we have the humans on the planet. So
And,
we
and now
just
they've bought the governments too.
exactly, yeah. You just put out your contract. You got your Declaration of Independence, your Constitution. Boom, you've got your magical creation.
Yeah.
So what I have been doing for most of my life is traveling around planet Earth, mostly around America, but now the world, and living and existing on synchronistic means. And what I do is I take people with me each time, and it's almost like you're just taking them out to the middle of the ocean. I'll put them in my vehicle, and we'll just head off and not even know where we're going or why we're going or what we're going to do when we get there. And what had happened was I found everything fell perfectly for me. I just kept running into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And by the time I'd return back to what I would consider a home base, I would find that I had epic stories. I had been to all the greatest events. I'd been and seen all the things people wish they would see in their lifetimes. And I didn't have a dime to my name. And people would ask me, well, how did you do all that? Because they are so conditioned to believe in the foundations of the secret societies, such as money and corporations and the foundations of institutions, that they can't believe in a force that works outside of that. And so once I realized, and they asked me, well, how did you do all that? I would say, well, I never thought about it until now. I don't know.
No limitations, and that's you can achieve. I think anything you want to do at that stage, if you just either believe in it or just don't believe at all, just do it, basically.
Yeah, just no fear whatsoever. The mind of a child, the innocence necessary to be the fool. And I would find my way just running around, just being friendly, just being nice and not even considering what I was doing and just letting it unfold. But I would always bring someone with me that was never experienced such a thing or has never even left their hometown. And I'd watch them completely panic as we got out into the middle of what they considered nowhere, which of course was just another city somewhere, or another town or whatever. But they had no foundation to stand on in their minds. And so they would completely panic. Most of them will flip out and just, ditch me and go back home, go back and find a job and feel all secure. But of course, there is no true security in money, finances, or a job. We can see that. And so now we have decided to go out on what we call the friendship agenda and prove this to the world. So I did it all on my own before, but now we're broadcasting it live out through the internet because we now have that ability. And we're showing people, here we have been on the road for 10 months, going on 11 months, almost a year. And we've had the most beautiful experiences. We have met the most beautiful people. We've united them all under our own banner, the friendship agenda. And what has happened is as we go from place to place, we find all these people that say, well, I can't find anyone to talk to about this crazy stuff. And we're like, well, we know 7 people in your town, so let's get them all together. And we'd bring everybody together and we'd leave lasting friendships when we would leave. Well, for them, they would all be friends now and have a group and they could join. And so we've been doing this all over the United States. We've done a sacred spiral around the United States. We started in the exact center in Lawrence, Kansas, which is dead center of the United States. And we spiraled out to New York, down through Florida, across Texas, through New Mexico, up into California, through Oregon, and now we're in Washington. And we don't have jobs. There's 3 of us traveling. We've lived like kings. We do not dumpster dive. We've been given homes and friendship and cars and everything everywhere we go. There is plenty of abundance and plenty of sharing that people want to do. And we're proving that to the world if they can see it, if they can really see what we're doing. Because what happens is people will go to our Miss Emily channel. Now, Miss Emily is our school bus. And we call her that because she's the Mystery School Mobile Media Lab Experiment, or MSMMLE. And we broadcast all of the events and the people that we meet on freemantv.com under Miss Emily. But what you'll see is us living it up. You'll see us swimming in Florida for Christmas, and we found the Ark of the Covenant twice. We've seen Jesus crucified. We've been to every Occupy movement.
Wait. What do you mean Ark of the Covenant and Jesus? Tell us about that. What is that?
Well, of course, you can watch all the videos on our screen, but the first Ark of the Covenant we found was
the George Washington Masonic Memorial.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we were meeting with a lady who works for the State Department, and her husband's a big fan of the show. He actually supplies us with the monatomic gold you'll find on our website. And so we went to the Temple of the 33rd with him and a few other areas in Virginia. And we went up to the George Washington Masonic Memorial, where they have this giant golden George Washington. And the Ark of the Covenant was up there as well.
Well, first we were in the elevator, and you can't go anywhere by yourself really in the temple. You have to stay with the guide, and so the guide takes us in the elevator, and it accidentally stops at 2.5, which isn't even a stop. And the doors open, and there's a room there, and the guy's like, "Oh crap!" And he tries to shut the door and not let anyone see what's going on in floor 2.5. And so he quickly shuts that, and we continue on to the 3rd floor where the Ark of the Covenant is. But I just thought that was so interesting that it was like John Malkovich or something. We saw the hidden room that we weren't supposed to see.
Yeah. And the second.
So what? By the way, so how did it look? Is it like the classic depictions, or what was it? Did you ask the guy?
It's interesting because a lot of these Freemasonic temples, it's just an entire history of Judaism. They have all the tribes carved on the door with their sigils, and they had a recreation of the, what's it called, the Holy of Holies. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Holy of Holies with the mock Ark of the Covenant in there. Well,
there's plenty of literature arguing the connections between Judaism and Freemasonry, and that's why I kind of asked a bit more about the Kabbalistic strand within Freemasonry as well, and how connected that might be to Judaism. I mean, I know Freemasonry borrows from a lot of ancient traditions, but Judaism seems to be the most prominent. And if you look at the foundings, like in Charleston, South Carolina, where the Scottish Rite originally were set up, there's a lot of Jews who were part of that process. So one wonders how much close ties there are there, basically.
Well, I mean, that was the first Masonic temple, right? King Solomon's temple to house the Ark and the Covenant. That's where their roots go back to. So every lodge is supposed to be the same as King Solomon's temple.
Mm. Yeah, so you'll always see the Star of David over the door. And it is definitely the most primary symbolism that you'll see there.
For sure.
The second Ark of the Covenant we found was at the Holy Land Experience in Florida.
Right between Disney World and Universal Studios in Orlando is this thing called the Holy Land Experience. And this is a theme park set up by TBN, which is a...
Trinity Broadcasting Network. Yeah,
TV evangelist network. And it's funny because their crest is the same as...
OTO, isn't it?
The British.
The British Queen of England with the lion and the unicorn on one side.
Oh, okay. Yes, I thought it was that dove with kind of storming down into a grail or something, but I'm mistaken then.
Too, but their main one is the shield with the lion and the unicorn, which I find interesting.
Although they removed the horn off the unicorn.
Yes.
Yeah, can't have this magical, stuff in a Christian.
Is it still chained?
I think it was. I'll have to review the film again. I meant to look at that before talking about it.
But for $30, you can go in, and they have these different exhibits. One we went to, they did an entire Shekinah reenactment where they would sacrifice a lamb on the altar and bring the smoke. And they're telling you the entire ritual, throughout, and the guy's acting it out. And so he sacrifices the lamb, and the smoke comes out, and then he goes into the first room of the holy temple, and there's the showbread and the menorah, and they explain all about the history of this, because they would only do it once a year. He could only go in there once a year. And then he would go in the Holy of Holies where the Ark of the Covenant was and make his... It
really looked like straight out of Indiana Jones. I mean, lights and flashing, and all of a sudden a big Shekinah, the Shekinah force comes out of
the lightning struck the covenant.
Yeah. I mean, it was really done up. I mean... And right after we're done with the Shekinah experience in the Ark of the Covenant, which looked very much like the one you would see in Raiders of the Lost Ark, then we were invited to go have Last Supper with Jesus. And it's pretty funny at this Holy Land experience because they've got two forms of Jesus there. They've got the bloody Jesus and the buddy Jesus. And Buddy Jesus is there with his angel wings and dressed like Fonzarelli from Happy Days.
Hey.
Jeans,
He's doing that too. He's pointing at you.
Yeah, he's pointing with a big old cheese grid on a motorcycle, right? In a white T-shirt with ripped jeans, and that's Buddy Jesus. And so we have the Last Supper with Jesus, but it's a different Jesus. And and after the Last Supper, every day at 2:40, you can go watch Jesus brutally, bloodily crucified.
That's nice.
Hey, was Jesus with his girlfriend, Mary Magdalene?
No.
There's Mary Magdalene there.
I want to ask you about the Holy Land experience there because, well, Zion is a big theme in this, so we've been talking about many things. It connects back to the Olympics we talked about before, the building of this city, and even in the Olympics, again, pandemonium was representative of this. They were building London, building up this through the Victorian era of the, industrialization. But it's the capital of hell. That's how they portrayed it in the Olympics. And some say it's London is the new Jerusalem. There's tons of new Jerusalems around the world. But what is the Zion connection? And again, is this another connection to Judaism?
Well, it's interesting because at the Holy Land experience, it's all smoke and mirrors. I mean, there's so much fog and mirrors everywhere, which totally reminded me of the trauma-based mind control. How they use the mirrors to make you disassociate and everything. But the place was packed, and it was standing room only to watch this bloody crucifixion. And then after that, they were having a celebration for their new cathedral, which is called Church of All Worlds.
Church of All Nations.
Oh, Church of All Nations. So there's your unification of all the religions united, and they're bringing them all there to the Holy Land experience.
Now they call that a psychomantium, when they have the mirrors, and you're supposed to basically lose track of who you are with all these mirrors, making you, disassociate, as you said before. That's pretty interesting.
Consistent theme in the films as well when they're doing trauma-based type films. And there are so many. Like, if you really wanted to know what trauma-based mind control entails, you watch The Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher. And that is the handbook for trauma-based mind control. But you'll constantly see the split mirror symbolism or broken mirror symbolism when we're dealing with this type of trauma-based mind control. And you'll see that they are saying what we are trying to tell you they're doing, which is, say, for V for Vendetta, where he traumatizes, rapes her, and does all these things in the cage to Evie. The character V does to Evie. And then he says, but look, I've released you. And this is very much what they are trying to do to us in their belief system, is to traumatize us to such the point that we become whole, in their opinion.
Have you guys found any other source for Project Monarch to create a mind control victim outside of Fritz Springmeier's work?
Well, there's Kathy O'Brien, and there's Bryce Taylor.
Yeah.
We're waiting for Corey Feldman. We're trying to get him, actually. We're on inroads of contacting him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that would be interesting. He needs to speak out.
He does.
And there's certainly more as well. I don't know. I've always been amazed by how silent it still seems to be, but there's so many rumors there all the time, but none have the balls, I guess, to stand up and name names, point some fingers,
They don't want to hurt their career, that's why.
Yeah, but if their career already is over, they should be able to, out of spite, I guess, do it. Huh?
Well, if Fritz Springmeier's book isn't true, then it's really interesting, because it seems like all the videos and movies, they just, take it play by play and put everything that he talks about in there. And you can see it in every single, Britney Spears' videos. That's an interesting study in itself if you just watch each one back to back. her music videos, you know?
Yeah.
Because you'll see her fighting clones, her own clones, blowing up clone labs, fighting Men in Black. What else?
Well, the most curious one was as you start to study like Fritz Springmeier's triggers and guidelines. So we're watching the latest Britney Spears. I can't think of the name of it.
I Want to Go.
I Want to Go. And she's in front of a press stand in front of the press, and she is giving away and telling them, you know, that things are manipulated and all of this is a mess. And all of a sudden, Guillermo from Weeds shows up, and he hands her. What did he say to her?
He said, what is it? Something about seashells.
Well, he hands her seashells and tells her, you know, well, now come with me. And so she immediately silences herself because he had handed her these seashells. She stops talking to the press and leaves with him. So what happens is we break out Fritz Springmeier's How to Create Your Own Undetectable Mind Control Slave and look up seashells. And they say this is a symbol given to the trauma-based mind control victims to let them know that they are always being listened to, that they are never alone. And so that every word that they will say will be heard by their masters.
Because they tell them that seashells and plants and things can hear what they say and will report back to the handler, so they're never safe to talk, basically. So he stops her press conference, gives her the seashells, she leaves with him, and at the very end he looks over his shoulder and he's got this evil red eye, like from 2001, you know, the Howl.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, because I mean, the reason I'm asking as well is I've been trying to find more corroborative evidence for this. I know Fritz wrote it, well, some of his works together with this alleged insider Cisco Wheeler. Don't know if that's a right name or not, or if it's a taken name, but I mean, granted, they who do the music videos and the movies have done this way before the concept of the Illuminati became popular. But I'm also wondering at this stage if there is a feedback loop here, because they've noticed how if they put this stuff in their videos and do that, it helps to make it go viral and people now talk about it, and it's become more difficult to determine, if you know what I mean, if this is the genuine deal or if they're just doing it because of the fact that they know market-wise that it actually works, because it helps to get the music out there further, because people are like, oh my God, look at this now. I mean, just look at the popularity of some of the websites and even the whole rap industry. That's just gone off the meters, you know, with Jay-Z and all the Illuminati symbolism there, right?
Right. And yes, I agree with you. And Lady Gaga is a prime example of how they've mainstreamed this very concept and then made it very difficult for us to talk about, because now it's so open and so blatant. You know, she's performing blood rituals on American Idol. You know, now he can't really say anything about it. And when we have Lady Gaga going into Rolling Stone magazine describing a dream she had where has a little girl on a table with slit wrists and she's pouring honey into the slit wounds, and her mother tells her, oh, that sounds like an Illuminati ritual, and Rolling Stone is publishing that, you know, where do you go with this?
Do you think she was telling the truth, though, or that was just a fabrication for the press?
I think it's all a fabrication, yeah.
I don't know, because you have to watch this video called Marry the Night of hers. And it's a full length, maybe like 11 minutes or so, but it starts out, they're rolling her through this fancy hotel room on a gurney, and she's telling you that trauma is the ultimate killer and she has no memories, so she has to fill in the gaps with beautiful things because her reality is so ugly. And she gets into the the room where there's another kind of like pop star looking girl playing the piano, and she says they brought her gummy bears when she asked for a knife and stuff like that. So the video goes on, and there's actually a part where the nurse comes in and says, I've been with you since you were born, and I'll still be there. And she's had this procedure done where they've cut something out of her, and they'd never really say what that is. But if you want to get, you know, the inside of what that might look like, you have to watch that video called Marry the Night.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I wonder as well how much they individually know. Someone must be someone is pulling the strings behind the scenes. The managers, what's his name? Troy Carter. Don't know how much he knows and whatnot, but I mean, they have a huge entourage of people behind them who are telling them what to do, what to say, how to walk. I mean, these are these are products, these are brands, these people. And so they're being highly, their strings are being pulled. Yeah.
I think that the projects that have these, these triggers and things in them, when there's a bottleneck of talent that's trying to get, past the hedge onto mainstream or whatever, they choose the ones that have these elements in them. So it's not necessarily the person that's making the video is like all knowledgeable about Fritz Springmeier and he's putting all these things
exactly. Yeah.
It will get the green light if it hits these certain trigger points.
And someone could just make subtle little suggestions behind the scenes or encouragements, like why not do something on this theme or put that in there and change that. I mean, as we know, many people are involved in the process. So,
as I was saying before about bringing people out and showing them life without the foundation of the brotherhood or the institutions that we have, I personally believe this is the solution to trauma-based mind control, because the only thing that cures mind control or trauma is the sense of security. And of course, they're removing all of that. Every movie out there tells you to fear your neighbor, don't go to a truck stop, don't make the wrong turn.
Well, can you think of one movie that is set in the future where it's a nice place to live?
Yeah.
Not many. No, not at all.
It's set in the future is dystopian, robotic, post-apocalyptic. There is no happy vision through the future, so we have to start making one ourselves.
And then even within the foundation of fashion, all of the clothing that we're wearing now is post-apocalyptic and is all destructive or dark or shredded or looking as if, we've been through hell and back and returned. So fashion is taking us in that mind, and this is, another one of their magical tools, of course. But
fashion is the witch's greatest friend.
Yeah, that's Anton LaVey.
And I'm talking about satanic witches. I'm not talking about Wiccans or, Druids, because there's a broad spectrum when you say witch or whatever. So I'm just talking about specifically the satanic witch.
You think people are weaker nowadays than they were in the past? Because it seems like people are just sponges for all this stuff and they just take it in right away and then they become robots. It happens so fast.
Yeah, I think, television really had a big part to play in all of that and programming us all to be that receptive. I think prior to television, you would find a generation that wasn't receptive and it was also a lot more intelligent.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's very empty. There's not much wisdom left anymore. And if you think about it, parents are taken away. Everything is so structured and compartmentalized within society where you spend your time. You're very limited to what you learn. You don't spend any time with your, family or grandparents almost anymore. There's always people who are going to break this mold, but generally, it's like the state has more, in control of your child, and that could be, programming at the end of the day behind that from corporations and everything else who controls the curriculum or what should be taught or whatnot. But it's incredibly controlled, basically. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, and look at the comedies today, what they call a comedy anyway. What do they talk about, like your feces or masturbating, and people are like cracking up thinking it's like the funniest thing in the world.
It's very base. It's a low shock. It's stuck on the low shock. There's no like wittiness almost left anymore or any language or anything. It's just like the most infantile things that's being played on.
Well, Disney's network ABC, their slogan is called A New Kind of Family.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of their shows are openly homosexual.
Well, and there's a show called Modern Family, which I haven't really seen a lot of episodes all the way through, but there's not one normal, loving, nuclear mom, dad, child family in that show.
Well, it's true that they've moved on from the image of Al Bundy, Homer Simpson, the stupid father. In some cases now, he's not even around anymore, and it's all transformed into this kind of new mega family where you need to spend on Christmas Eve, you need to go to 3 or 4 different places because there's like, a collective more than a family, I guess.
But not only that, it's the dysfunction between them. I know you have to make conflict to make a show or whatever, but it's just ultimate dysfunction. Nobody gets along and nobody's treating each other.
Well, it's
with
funny when I
respect.
see friends talking these days, I think they're fighting. And that's just their form of
I'm in the
communication.
dressing room, at a girl's clothes store, and I hear in the next stall to me, like, "You bitch, you're a bitch,
It's
you're
this
up."
new word I heard called frenemy. Like, what the hell is that? We're friends, but we're enemies. We hang out, but I hate you. It's like, that's real healthy, people.
Bitch and whore, and come on, let's go, slut. And I'm like, what the heck?
Wow. And there's intention behind those words as well, even if they don't know what they're doing. I mean, there's a charge there, and that's going to affect you. It's going to affect your relationship. Wow.
The first person I heard talk to their girlfriends like that in the mainstream was Paris Hilton.
Right.
Well, this is why I don't go out anymore.
Stay away.
Yeah.
Well, culture is going downhill fast. It's incredibly how quick it has gone down, and it's just, I don't know if there's a stop to it. Now, there is one, unless you have more comments on it, there was another thing I wanted to ask you guys about, and that's some of the symbolism within media, because I have a different take on it. Well, there's two different versions on it, but mostly we see it's being portrayed when we see an all-seeing eye, for instance, in a movie, that this is a sign that it's something evil being portrayed, or rather this is evidence that those who've done the movie are in on it, or they put their own stamp of the Illuminati there. But I have to say, looking at many other movies where this is prominently featured, it's more times than not associated, the sign is associated with the evil characters or the bad guys in the film than not. Have you guys seen this?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Even
What does that mean? Do you think? Because again, I don't think that's evidence that they're just simply in on it. Is there a deeper message to it?
Well, it's interesting because there's a episode of Tom and Jerry where they go to the mogul of Hollywood, who kind of looks like Steven Spielberg in a way, and he turns out to be a reptilian genie ghost with an all-seeing eye.
Yeah.
Egyptian
too as well.
Yeah.
Or is it? Oh, sorry to interrupt there for a minute. Again, okay. So and the other side to that coin is the following. I mean, you could see the symbol prominently featured in many cathedrals around in Europe, Gothic cathedrals and churches, usually Roman Catholic churches. But at least in Europe, it's a very prominent theme, and it simply represents God. It's the all-seeing eye of God. So in that way, could it mean that the message in the movies is they're showing you that those who are associated with the so-called God, Yahweh or what have you, are siding with the evil team? Or could it be that they've been trying to point out, well, so the good guys here are those who are in opposition to those who associate with the all-seeing eye, meaning they are the Luciferians almost. There's a number of different ways we can interpret this.
Yeah, that's a tough one, Henrik. I'm liking your train of thought, and the whole Yahweh situation. But
I guess I just encourage people to, next time you see that in a movie or something like that, or if you go through the movies and watch those where there is an all-seeing eye featured, watch what group they associate this with in the movie, and more times than often it's associated with those who are the bad guys in the movies. So that just puts a different twist to it. But go ahead, Freeman.
That reminded me of something interesting that, when you are trying to make it in the biz, to get as big as Eminem or somebody like that, you have to have this contract, and they do it. I don't think they know what they're doing when they do it. But then when it's time to hold up their part of the bargain, or it's time for Satan to collect on their contract or whatever, then they start freaking out and putting it out there like Eminem would put out, the demon's trying to kill me, he's inside me, and songs like that. So it could be that it's a way for them to artistically revolt against what they have been sworn to serve. Yeah.
It could also be that they're openly are basically performing this battle that they're having with, they've signed a deal with the devil basically in one way or another, and now they're openly in that fight, and we're seeing people basically have breakdowns in real time, so to speak. Again, look at the situation with Britney Spears or Miley Cyrus, I think is her name, Hannah Montana, talking about how Satan is trying to destroy her family, right? It's like happening right in the open.
Yeah, and she just shaved her head too and dyed her hair blonde, so that was interesting.
Well, there you go.
And Katy Perry came out with her latest video, and it's showing her burying her inner child in a way. And in the lyrics, she says, "If I had known, I would have never done this. If I had known about what I was getting into, I would not have participated. But now that I'm in it, I'm going as far as I can."
Yeah, this video is called Wide Awake, and it shows her eating the forbidden fruit and leading her inner child through a labyrinth with minotaurs and
God, I mean, it's interesting all that. I'm not saying that, but man, they're using the same symbols over and over, and it's like there is no creativity there. They're just doing the same thing.
They don't. They're not creative. That's why they need us. That's why they have to contract with artists, because they can't create anything for themselves.
And these people are chosen, the ones that, as you alluded to before, not every person can make it in within the industry. They choose people who are already connected family-wise, or whoever they want to be. There's a million of talented people out there that never even get a chance. But then someone who's, the daughter or son of this person or that person gets chosen, and so they are keeping it within the inner circle of the family up top, definitely.
Right.
Did you want to talk a little bit more about CERN, Freeman, tying it into some of the things you found there, or were we finished on that point, by the way?
That might digress. So I think the best point to leave with is our friendship agenda, and maybe share some of our travels or something, or the solutions that we're finding.
Sure, definitely. Let's head into that area and begin to round off on that note. So go ahead, Freeman.
Well, so now we are out in Miss Emily, traveling around nearly a year. We're showing all the benefits of friendship, and we are literally trying to convert people from money as a currency to friendship as a currency. And this is the biggest battle that we have, is trying to convince people that humans are good. Because one of the main programmings that we are seeing today is the concept that humanity is a virus on the planet and needs to be eradicated. And you'll hear this left and right. It's part of the sociological programming that's coming through children with Earth First. A lot of the nature, a lot of what people consider a positive movement is having a negative aspect on what human is.
Very anti-human. It's incredible, isn't it?
Amazing. And how easily and how quickly this gets programmed too. And so the children all think humans are bad, and from there it grows until adulthood and everybody. So it has been our goal to go around and show people, because, we've shown you all the evil. we've databased and outlined every which way we can find. But then where do we go for the solutions? I mean, it's not Ron Paul. If we're talking America,
yeah,
the solution's within us. And so what I was saying was that as we were showing all the things that we have done, and as when I was traveling before and telling people our stories of where we've been and all the things we've done, they think that we're some unique being and that it's only us that are capable of doing this. And also people think that we have money, so they think I'm a celebrity now. I'm on HBO right now on Me at the Zoo. I'm in a comic book called Metasapiens. I'm going to be in the film with Dan Fogler. I have the article coming out in Paranoia. So everybody thinks I'm a celebrity, and it kind of cracks me up because, I've got less than $40 to my name. This is the wave that we ride, and we ride it proudly. We're okay just, having the synchronistic moments guide us to the next synchronistic moments. And we have eaten like kings and have been treated like royalty and brought everywhere and shown everything. And everywhere we go, everybody wants to show us everything in their town. And we found that even if we introduce new people into it, it doesn't need to be Freeman and Jamie. It could be Sam and John that we bring, and they get the exact same treatment. And they're then left in that state where they're shown around and everybody becomes friends. So we're absolutely positive that if we could show people the experiential guide, the experience of synchronicity, which is very, very hard to translate into words or into telling people, because until you experience a mystical event like that for yourself, you won't believe in it.
And it will be individual, I believe, as well. So what speaks to you on a synchronistic level will be very powerful, maybe to you yourself, but others might not kind of get that connection either.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have to experience it to believe it, and you have to believe it to experience it. And so
what you're explaining is kind of like a mystical level of socialism without the taxes.
That's funny.
So here we are, nearly a year on the road, displaying all the wonders that we've seen. We've built our own social network called friendshipagenda.com, where all the people that we hand meet and then their friends all have joined. And we have all kinds of video editors and radio talk shows, and then just the crazy people that we meet, the wonderful people, I should say, are all joining together in this social network, but more so they're joining together outside in the world. And we just hope that more and more people might take up this type of tactic and start going out and spreading friendship instead of fear, and start to, this is our only answer, guys, is to meet one another and to realize that we are all in the same boat.
All right, very good. Now, give us the URLs again of these two websites that we've been talking about. And if there's more, maybe Jamie, if you have something to give out as well.
Well, the only website you really need for me is freemantv.com. 7 years running now, and I have everything I've ever said, thought, or done on there, including our interviews, Henrik.
Right.
And it will lead you right there to the Friendship Agenda, which is friendshipagenda.com. And so these two are really the only two portals you need, freemantv.com and friendshipagenda.com.
All right, really good. We're going to have that up. But we wanted to talk a little bit about Kickstarter as well. So let's get into that.
You're absolutely right. So in order to really bring this to fruition and to try to, solidify our placement in this conspiracy field, Jamie and I have been working on a book. Mostly Jamie, because I do all the radio and other stuff, but I'll be kicking in where I can. But we're working on a book called Weird Stuff. And it's going to be somewhat in a magazine format, but yet it's already, how many chapters?
22.
22 chapters. It's well past a magazine. It is an encyclopedia of the weird. And it's called Operation Culture Creation. So we plan on making a couple different variations of Weird Stuff. So the first edition is called Operation Culture Creation, and it's going to outline everything that we've been talking about here on this show and more, with all of the accompanying pictures. So we are starting a Kickstarter campaign to finalize Weird Stuff and to maybe give us a space to finish the book. We're homeless, call home free, but it's very hard to write a book when you're constantly moving to another place. So we're starting a Kickstarter campaign to get the final production done, to get the publication going out. And so we hope everybody will come over to the Kickstarter, which will be linked up on freemantv.com, and help us get this out, because what this is going to be is a tool for you. It's not self-aggrandizing or anything. It's a tool that you can sit down on your coffee table, and it's gonna attract everyone because it's popular culture. And you'll see the cover and, Weird Stuff. It seems really innocuous. And next thing you know, you're learning. All of a sudden, and you're going to want to learn it because you're going to see Batman, you're going to see Lady Gaga, you're going to see Beyonce, and it will be a page turner, no doubts about it.
So it's maybe a little bit like maybe not an encyclopedia, but it's a collection of all the things. So how far does the pendulum swing, if I can put it that way? What are some of the two extremes that you have currently anyway in there?
Well, there's an article about magic and religion. There's an article about sorcerers and robots. There's an article about like I said, Project Crazy Bitch and about the Shekinah. It goes everywhere, you know, from transhumanism to It's a Small World, basically. Atlantis.
And we have been picking up every book you can imagine. We've got 6 books on Walt Disney alone. As we've been traveling, we've actually been hitting all the different library book sales. And these guys don't have any idea what a gold mine they have. And we're picking them all up for $1. So we've also started an occult bookstore on Freeman TV to share what we're getting for so cheap, because we're finding, you know, $300 Manly P. Hall books for $1. And so we're just grabbing them as we see them, because we already have 3 copies, and then we can sell these at a super, super, super discounted rate. So we've, you know, I can't even, the bibliography for weird stuff is going to be another chapter of its own.
Right, really good. Sounds exciting. Now, in the meantime, here, freemantv.com, that's the main website. And then at the time of this recording, the Kickstarter project is not up and running, but we'll have it on the website as well. We're going to link that up for you guys. So you could just send that to me. But, well, it's been very interesting. Nice touching base with you guys again. Where are you off to next then?
Well, we've been invited to an intentional community on the way to Yelm. I don't remember where it was exactly, but what happens is people just write us and say, hey, you know, come to my house. And so we do. And we don't know who we're meeting or where we're going. So like one time we were invited to go sailing, and we were hanging out with these other people that we had just met. And they were like, what do you mean you're going sailing with this stranger? Why would you do that? He might just kill you and throw you off. You don't know who he is. You're conspiracy theorists. You should be scared. Well, we're like, no, we're going to go sailing with the guy. He turns out to be the one person he was hired by Michael Eisner of Walt Disney to put the boxes in to create all the radio stations in the world. He has the back door to all radios. He worked on the International Space Station, was hired by the CIA to make their drones all work together. You know, the most intriguing, amazing people, and without fear. But I was leading that to where I got lost in my own train of thought.
I was thinking about Dead Calm, that movie from 1989. No, anyway. So you're heading off?
So we're going. So we're off to Yelm, and we had never heard of Yelm. And
neither have I. Where is that?
In Washington.
Okay.
We mentioned this. Everybody that we were running and mentioned it to, oh, I love Yelm. Oh yeah, Yelm's a great place. Well, it turns out Yelm is like the home of Ramtha, and everybody there, everybody there is in contact or in connection with Ramtha. And so we're really looking forward to figuring out what that all means and what'll happen.
Well, we just came from Mount Shasta, where they all have the Saint Germain Foundation and everything. So we'll go meet Ron now.
All right. Well, could be interesting. Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for your time today and for joining us. And I hope you have a good travel, obviously, as you continue. Are you staying at the at James' place a few more nights, or heading off pretty soon here?
Tomorrow.
This should be our last night here. And then we'll go up to Yelm, and we'll go around. We've been invited to Yakima and maybe even Canada. And then we want to head back down and meet up with Rex Church and talk about the Ragnarok engine and Clyde Lewis at Ground Zero Media. And maybe we'll just reverse our trip. You know, this was something we didn't mention. Halfway along our trip, when we reached Texas, we saw the film Magic Trip, which was all about Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters in their school bus. Well, as we watched this film, we realized that we had done the entire Merry Prankster trip in reverse.
Oh, wow. Nice sync.
Even landing in La Honda, California, where they bought the bus. And so we relived the 60s backwards.
That's good.
Well, enjoy your trip, guys. I miss those open roads in America.
It's pretty incredible, guys, and I can't believe it's been going as long as it has, and I can't believe we're still going. And thank you so much for having us on the show, because we love talking with you so much, and you guys come up in so many conversations you just don't even know.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Freeman, and thank you, Jamie. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
Red Ice Radio is 100% independent. We don't rely on any funding from any interest groups, people, organizations, or corporations. We are commercial-free. We spare you from interruptions in the radio program and a website full of blinking banners. We are listener-supported, and we have a members website with our entire archives going back to our start. If you like what we do, if you want to hear more, and if you want to support our efforts, sign up for a membership at redicemembers.com. When you do, you can stream or download all of our radio programs, TV episodes, films, video interviews, audio commentaries, and webcasts. You can also now, on the new members website, comment on any of our programs and share your opinions with us and our listeners. You can access all our programs through RSS feeds, and we also have a new and easy search function. redicemembers.com and also redicecreations.com. We have so much more coming your way. Up next, Randall Carlson, Charles Upton, Santos Bonacci, Joseph Atwill with Fritz Heed and Niola Sparkis, and then later Larkin Rose and Katie Diolos, to name a few. We also welcome your guest suggestions as well. Feel free to write to us. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take good care.